Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Lean Into Your Superpower. I am Zaina Exelis, and I am with my co-host here, Kathleen Pence.
Hey,
Hello.
everybody.
And we are the Lion and the Ram. So today is our very first episode. We're super excited to be here with you. And we will be discussing what is your superpower? So why is knowing your superpower vital to your success, right? We've literally, Kathleen and I have built an entire podcast on harnessing and utilizing your superpower. And I want to give an opportunity for Kathleen to talk here, but I'm going to first to considering that this is our very first episode, I think it's vital that you know who we are and what our superpower is and why this is important for us and why having this format, right, of being able to communicate with you guys and share our experiences is so important. Kathleen, I want you to introduce yourself and and let them know a little bit about you and what you think your superpower is.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Kathleen. We're so excited to have this first episode with you guys and that you're here. And so we're excited to take this journey with you. So thank you. Well, when we're talking about our superpower, I think it's so important to kind of figure out what that is, because when you know what you're good at, what you're innately good at, you can lean into that and really use it to help you through problems, to help you in your personal growth and that sort of thing. So I think it's super important to know what you're innately good at. So do you want to know what I think my superpower is? Okay.
It's yours.
Okay.
What do you think? And we're gonna dive into like finding your superpower, but first this episode is like basically an introduction for anybody that's never heard of the word superpower before or how we're going to be utilizing it in this podcast.
Yes, we will definitely get into it. So this is kind of just an overview. So for me, when I think about my superpower, I think about how I live my daily life, what do I do during the day, and how do I navigate problems and that sort of thing. So when I'm thinking about how I'm doing that, I think about how I analyze situations and certain aspects of a situation. I'll look at it and I feel like I have a gut instinct about how someone is going to react or behave or something like that. So I feel like I have a really good superpower for that sort of thing. So I would say categorize my superpower as reading minds, or being able to understand how others feel so that I can then frame my reaction or my interaction with them based on what I believe they're feeling. I also, in my daily work, and we'll get into what I do, but in my daily work, I have a lot of problems that come up that I have to solve. So when I'm doing that, I'm analyzing the situation. I'm looking at the facts. I'm thinking about who's on the other side of this problem and how are they going to behave. And I use that to guide me and dig into these situations, kind of pull them apart. So in that way, I would say that another one of my superpowers is X-ray vision.
Yes, I would
solve these problems.
I would absolutely agree with that. So Kathleen and I have known each other for a while. What, since 2019, Kathleen?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so about going on 5 years now. And how we got to know each other is Kathleen, I want Kathleen to say what she does, and we're both attorneys, or we have an attorney background. And knowing her, she does have that like super, like she knows exactly how to analyze situations before making decisions, and like real attention to detail, right? Being able to just kind of cut through the crap and know also where something could potentially be going, right?
Right.
For me, and we'll again, as this podcast goes on, we'll reveal more and more and more about ourselves. But for me, it's definitely strength, resilience, and endurance, right? I really enjoy challenges. And I know a lot of people shy away from challenges. For me, as you get to know me, you'll know why I really enjoy challenges. I'm very comfortable in being uncomfortable. And I kind of use those to persevere and to kind of push myself. I also have a power to influence my environment, right? I know like that's kind of like the ram in me. And I want to also touch on that a little bit, Kathleen, why we decided to call each other the lion and the ram. You know, I push, you know, I'm kind of headstrong, I push. And then as soon as I feel like, okay, I'm not getting somewhere with that person, then I'll go back and I'll wait and I'll let it percolate, and I will always come back, right? I will always come back and bring up those feelings. So my background is I am a licensed attorney, have been for 20 years, but for the last 5 years or so, I've been focused on business consulting, business coaching, particularly professional services, but most of my clients or people I've worked with have been other law firms, small law firms. And so I get a chance to really dig into the mindset, dig into the you know, what makes them tick, how to overcome their challenges so that they can get to the growth that they want to experience, whether it's personal, financial, professional, whatever. And so that's like, I love my job. I love what I do right now because it really harnesses all of my superpower. And I feel like this is the first time in my life where I'm able to like really show who I am, and it's natural, right?
Yeah.
It's natural.
Which is so great that you can be able to, you know, really harness that superpower and use it to help other people.
Right. And it took me a while, like a really long time. I've been working since I was 14 years old. And I'm not going to say how old I am, but I'm a lot older. And it took a really long time to finally feel like, oh, wait, it's not just about doing for others, right? It's not about just me being here and consumed with the wants and needs, as I think as women especially, right?
Yes.
The wants and needs of others, like always doing, and making sure others are successful, whether it's our kids, our partner, friends, or coworkers, or staff, or whatever. And it's like,
that's our role that we take on typically, right?
Right.
That's the role we typically take on willingly as the caretaker. You know, we want everybody to be taken care of. We want everybody to be okay. We want everybody to succeed. And we do it at the expense of ourselves. And then we can't show up in our best way because we've now depleted our tank to the point there's nothing left.
Right.
And I can talk because that's what I do. So I know from experience. And it's super important to put yourself first, but it's hard to do. Right. Very hard to do.
Right. And so we wanted a place, I think, where women, particularly high achieving women.
Yes.
I think we kind of get lost in the shuffle, you know.
We do. And as high achieving women, you know, we are so willing to take on to reach our goals. You know, we're so motivated to do that. And at the same time we're motivated to do it, we're still running ourselves physically ragged. And those two things can't go at the same time. So we have to be able to step back and refill our cup. And that's what I want from this podcast. And I know is your goal too, Zaina, is to create a community with other high achieving professional women who want to grow personally, mentally, emotionally, all that sort of stuff. And we can all support each other and help each other in that endeavor.
Right. And something that's unique for both of us is we both built, you know, brick by brick, kind of like the picture behind you, you know, like it wasn't given to us. Nothing, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but we built who we are today.
Yes.
And I think, like you said, and just to add on to what you said about our goal, is to give permission specifically to women. And when I say high achievers, we don't necessarily just mean like working women. Okay. You can be a high achiever, you know, in your, you know, stay at home or whatever community. Yeah. We're giving permission for you to lean in.
Yes.
lean in space to your superpower, right?
Yes.
Um,
I'd like to explain a little bit why I'm the lion.
yeah,
We
yeah.
talked about being the ram, so I kind of want to clear that up for
Oh yeah.
people. So I'm the lion. I am a Leo. I don't necessarily believe that all astrological signs match that person, but mine definitely does match me. When I think of a lion, I think of a very, I actually think of a very quiet entity in a way, but that portrays strength. And I think I do that. I do sit back and listen and then, analyze and examine, which also goes right back into my superpower that I was talking about. And I do think that I portray strength in that way. But I think I can be fierce if provoked. So I'm very much, yeah. So I think I'm very much the lion, which is very interesting. So that's why we are the lion and the ram.
Right. And it's funny because I'm an Aries and the ram is signifies that. And
Yes.
I'm like you, I don't necessarily feel like every is coincides with every person, but I think it does for us. And I think as we go through and, I think our superpower and everything about us, and as you guys get to learn a little bit more about us and what we use to get to where we are today, that we get to see like we kind of use that. We use like the lion, characteristics or the ram to really enhance our superpower.
Right. And I think what's different about what we're doing is, and people will notice this as you all listen, you'll start to notice this, is that we want women to have permission to say, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
And I think as women, we typically feel like, oh, if I say that, then I'm arrogant or I'm conceited. And I want to get away from that. And I struggle with this too. And I'm starting to really try to dig into it, is to be able to stand in your superpower and say, this is my superpower and I'm good at this.
Right.
And this is a skill that I have, and it's not conceited and it's not arrogant. It's just something I know.
Right.
So that's what I want for our community.
Right. Because so much as women, no matter where you are in life, we just get this kind of, I don't know if it's just a cultural thing or whatever, but I think we get the message on some level that we have to kind of play small. Yes. That we kind of have to be, like a little meeker. We're like, our purpose may be just there to be for others, Right. And, we want this podcast to be like to say, yes, you can help others. But you can also do that and be there also for yourself and try to be the best self or lean into that space. Right. To figure out who you are, because I honestly don't believe that our purpose as women or as people is just to do for when I say do for others, I mean like putting other people's wants and needs ahead of you. There are people in this world who their mission and their superpower is doing for others. That's different than what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about, like you said, feeding into others without anything being fed back into you. Like that's
right. Those people those people that have that superpower of service, I guess you could say, they get filled that way. Yes. So the more they serve, the more filled they are. I am not that way. I wish I was, but I'm not. So as I serve, I get depleted and then I have to refill my cup.
But even, I don't know. And I think it'd be interesting if we get somebody that's like that on the podcast one day, that where their superpower is of service, to really know, like, okay, so you serving, so is it all like, do you fill your own cup by constantly putting the needs and wants of others? Or is it a service for another goal? Like, hey, I'm doing this for others because I feel I'm altruistic in a sense where I want a better society for my children. Or like, I feel like there's always like a reason. Yeah.
Like it serves another purpose.
Yeah, not to just serve, just to serve. Like if that makes sense.
Right.
There has
Yeah,
to be,
there's always a goal there.
yeah, like even if it's
Yeah.
an altruistic or religious or whatever kind of
Right.
spiritual reason about why you do it. And that is what fills you, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I think for a lot of us, it's just kind of like a hamster on the wheel,
Yes.
right? Oh, I got to put, our kids need this, my partner needs this, our friends need this, my coworker. Well, and then you get lost and you lose
Completely do.
sense of who you are. And I
Right.
typically see that in women. And just to let you guys know a little bit more about my background, not only have I been a lawyer for 20 years, but my undergrad degree was in psychology and math, and and I actually was a mental health counselor for a while. So I have that part. I think that's why I love doing what I do, because I have that part of me. So I'm super interested in the psychology and the mindset of people,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's also what led me to to finding, to harnessing and finding and
Right.
doing what I do and being able to give that back to the world.
Right. So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
So we're talking about superpowers. Do you think that your superpower can change over time? So
Yeah.
let's say I'm 20 years old, I'm in college, and my superpower is flying, right? My superpower is taking risks and seeing things from a new perspective. So that's the flying superpower. When you're 20 years old, it's much easier to take a risk than when you're 40.
Yeah.
So, but then when I become, my life goes on, I go through all of these things, I learn, I change, all of that. Do you think that your superpower can be different when you're 20 than when you're 40, or when you're 40 than when you're 60? Do you think it can change?
Absolutely. Because for me, what is a superpower? Back to our, theme or episode title, it's finding what energizes you.
And that can change over time.
That does change.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't. Like I know people who as children they were ballerinas and they're like that's like just their whole life, or gymnasts or something, and and that just felt like it's like they just know, and that's just how it, and that's in dancing or whatever, that energy, or painting, or typically more of a artistic kind of way is like what energizes them. So when our listeners are thinking like, hey, what is a superpower? How do I know? I have no idea, whatever.
Right.
It's really sitting there and thinking to yourself, what energizes me?
Right.
What is the thing that I get lost in?
Yeah.
What kind of puts you in that flow that makes time irrelevant?
Yeah. And how, if someone doesn't know, if they're sitting there thinking, well, I don't really know, how are they going to be able to focus on this and try to figure out what their superpower is? Do you think it's from, when you get so wrapped up in taking care of other people and taking care of things, and you're not doing those things that fill you up, you start to forget. So do you sit down and think about, what did I used to love to do? Maybe I should try that. Maybe I should try this hobby. And then that, as you dig through what you like to do, you start to realize, oh, this energizes me. Oh, this was great. I felt so energized afterward and happy. And then you can start to dig into that and see, is that my superpower?
Like if nothing's energizing you currently and nothing is bringing you joy.
Yeah. Right.
Right? Or it's bringing you joy to some level, but not to the level of like, oh my gosh, I get lost in it, and this is all I think about, and this is what I want to do, and this is what.
Yeah.
Then that tells me that yes, that you need to kind of go back in time.
Right.
And think back, to whatever, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe as a child.
Right.
And maybe as a child, like for me as a child, I really love dancing, like more like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like more like hip hop dancing, or I went to be like a choreographer kind of thing.
Yeah.
So maybe now you're like, in our whatever midlife, we think, okay, well, I'm not going to be a choreographer, but maybe if we can harness like, what about that?
So you're not going to be popping and locking
I'm not going to be popping
on the stage, but maybe you could do something in that vein that brings you joy.
Yeah, or really harnessing like, what was it, or just that feeling.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, Zaina, you know me
Yes.
well. I was having that problem too. I was not feeling fulfilled. I was not feeling filled up, and I was doing, I was running my business, and I was making sure my kids are taken care of, and I was, trying to be a good wife and do all that stuff, date night, all that stuff. Take care of yourself. You need to lose weight. You need to be healthy. You need to work out, all that stuff that you don't really want to do, but means you're a responsible adult, you're adulting, but none of it was really bringing me joy. So I thought back to what used to bring me joy was the performing arts, because I was involved in that.
Right.
So I tried to figure out a way to get involved in performing arts. I'm not going to be performing. That's not, I mean, I used to be on stage. I'm not going to be on stage now. So how am I going to get back into the arts? And so when I started to do that, I started to have those moments where you just feel lighter, and you just feel like untethered, you're not bound by anything, and you feel this joy, and then you have this emotional experience that kind of transcends logic, which is amazing to have. And so when I kind of started to do that, that's when I started to experience those moments of joy and feeling, filled up, refilled. And then I was better. I was a better parent. I was a better boss. I was a better spouse, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a multi-layered thing. First it's what is bringing me joy, or what has brought me joy in the past, and kind of,
Right.
trying to bring that back into your life.
Right.
And then it's kind of like also building on, where you are now, and, and what part of your job or work or home life or whatever is like, oh, when I do this at home, when I sit there and cook for the children, I get lost in it, and it brings me, a lot of joy, whatever, and just kind of building on that, because I don't think it's not knowing your superpower to next day or a week or a year later. No, I think it's not an overnight thing. It's like a step-by-step kind of process. And the more you're focused on the joy and on what energizes you, the more it's gonna unfold for you about, oh, you know what? This is actually, because your superpower for me was multiple things. And until I got this job, or I started doing what I'm doing now, I didn't realize that I needed all those things in a position to truly make me feel fulfilled. Because it was always like, oh, I have to either be a mental health counselor or an attorney or an educator, because I was a law professor for a while, and it just, this allowed me to like bring it all in.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know that until, you just kind of fall in to something. It's like, oh, you know what? This really touches on all the things that I read, really energizes me. It's not necessarily just one thing. It's not one thing. So I think for you, I mean, you can talk about for you, but, I think you being in theater, and, you want to talk a little bit about that background. And then like also, law and being in court is not that much different as
Not
performing.
a lot different. It's not.
So I want to give you an opportunity to say, like, because I think how I felt, like what I do is also with you, and then it's changing, because now you're like, okay, that's part of the growth, is not just staying stagnant. Okay, I'm great at what I'm doing, but getting yourself out of that comfort zone to even expand more on your superpower, which is why we honestly started this podcast. We were all feeling like, okay, now what?
Right. Well, it's, you grow so much over time, and you go through all of these things that require personal growth to survive, essentially. And then you realize that you have all of these lessons, these life lessons. And so this is my why for the podcast, is you have all of these life lessons, and you're like, I wish that I could tell people, I wish I could convey to people, this may be going on in your life, but this is what helped me, and if this could help someone else get through this, or if this could, be a light bulb moment for somebody, or give somebody another perspective. I think that's super important, especially in growth, because we can't grow on our own. We just can't. I mean, we can you can do all of the exercises for like self-awareness, and I feel like I'm pretty self-aware, but I definitely have blinders. and Zaina loves to point them out. And I think it's good to always have that different perspective and have someone hold up the mirror to you and show you, this is something you need to work on, and there are times when you may already know I need to work on this thing, but I don't know how. And I want to encourage people that who you were doesn't mean that's who you are today. It doesn't mean you have to be who you are today. And it doesn't mean you can't become the person you want to become.
Right.
You can let go all of those things that you don't like about yourself, the things you do. You can work on them and you can start to improve on those things. It's possible. And don't be afraid to do some self-reflection. It's okay to look at things and think, I don't like what I see, some things, but that doesn't mean that's who you are. It's just something you do, and I think some people are so afraid to self-reflect, and I wish they weren't, because it's the key to growth and it's the key to getting where you want to be in life. And that's my why for the podcast. I think that's probably your why too, is to be able to share with everybody the things that we've learned through what I call the weird and wacky stories of Kathleen. So, and we'll get into those. It's pretty interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think, it's important for, like, something that drew me into doing this with you, Kathleen, is that both of us have had really almost unimaginable horrors. I don't know how else to say it, because I really do think they're horrors in our lives, that if we tell our story to people, they're like, oh my God, how did you ever overcome this?
Yes.
And how did you not just overcome, but persevere and get to where we are now? Not just professionally, but personally, financially. I mean, are we perfect? No. Is this always a work in progress? Absolutely. But to go from where we were, how we started rather, and then go through this life like we did, there was lots of opportunities for us to just give up.
Lots. Yes. Lots.
Right? And so I do think it's important for the listeners to kind of like peek into that a little bit, so that we can tell you guys, listeners, no, I'm pretty confident in saying this. No matter what you've gone through in your life, we like either have been through just as horrible things as you, or persevered over more. So we have a real vantage point on what it means to go through some really, really bad hardships, and help others too with mindset, with harnessing their superpower, with leaning in and being your authentic self, just to persevere, whatever life throws at us.
And the thing about that is, like, we're not saying that we have all the answers. We're not experts. I like to say, that phrase where I've gone to the school of hard knocks. I definitely have. I'm not an expert for sure, but I've been through some stuff. And if any of our listeners are going through things, I want you to not feel alone in those things. Don't feel embarrassed that you're having hardships, because that's life. It's not Facebook, it's not Instagram, it's all these curated images that we see. Life is messy, life is hard, and I want you to feel a community here. And I want our listeners to reach out and ask questions, or say, I'm going through this, what do you think? That sort of thing, because we're all in this together, and we're all in it to grow together and get better and be better and feel supported. I want us to be a community that supports each other.
That's so important to me too, because so many of us, including myself, didn't feel like I had a safe place.
Right. You just feel alone sometimes, you're like, nobody else is going through this. Nobody else knows what this is like. In some situations, it's a very small group that knows what you're going through. And you're like, I didn't ask to be part of this club, but you are, and here you are. And there are others in the club, but they're not going to know
go ahead,
that you're in the club unless you say you're in the club, and we can talk about it.
And it's funny how sometimes people that you don't know, people that are not around you all the time, how it's almost easier, quote unquote, to open up and be your authentic self, because it's almost like your partner or your family or whatever have this preset because you grew up with them, or they've been around
Right.
you forever. Like they've kind of have this preset, whether consciously or not, notions of
Yeah.
who you are, and so you
Yeah.
feel like you have to kind of play that role.
Right.
And so you don't really feel that safe or open to be like,
Yeah.
this happened to me, or I'm really struggling through this, that, or the other.
Right.
And that's why kind of saying it in a safe space, maybe with people that you don't really know that well, allows you to kind of see it from a different perspective,
Yeah. There's this theory about that, about strangers having sort of, because we all know that you'll say things to strangers that you wouldn't say to your family. It's because they don't know you and you have like no basis of like reference or anything. And it does feel safer sometimes. And there is a theory about that. And I can't remember what they call it, but it's sort of this safety in strangers, essentially. Like you could confess these like, deep, dark secrets to this person you've never met. But yet your spouse is over here saying, why wouldn't you say that to me? Well, it's because like I care about what you think of me. And maybe it's because strangers, you don't really care what they think of you. So it's okay to kind of,
right.
talk about these things.
As
But
long as the strangers that that are like therapists or attorneys that have
yeah.
the confidentiality part of it, I think that makes it easier.
Oh, completely.
You
Yeah.
know, and I think, obviously, I mean, we're attorneys, but if once we develop this safe space, is we're going to be
Yeah.
very mindful of making sure that you guys are able to speak to us, or to our community, and
Right.
the confidentiality of everybody as well of that.
Yeah, definitely. I want it to be an uplifting experience for everybody. So, and we'll have, we'll talk about the crazy stuff that's happened, the funny stuff that's happened, the ridiculous stuff that's happened, because we're all human and we all have things that happen to us, and it's, life.
I do want to say this, and then I think I want to touch on a little bit of our background or what brought us, to this like 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
Is that sometimes, if you're struggling with, hey, what are my strengths, or I'm not sure, or because everybody's always, especially in my life, other people try to impose like how they see me, and so I was
Right.
trying to always play like the role that other people wanted me to play without even thinking like, okay, who am I really? What do I really
Right.
want? What are my true strengths?
Right.
Sometimes it's actually either somebody in your life that you trust that can say, look, I see this as a strength of yours. I literally got into
Right.
law school because my high school boyfriend, college boyfriend at the time said, I think you should go to law school. I never thought about law school. It was never in my, I never had a family member that was a lawyer. I never
Right.
knew a lawyer. I never interacted with a lawyer. And it was just him literally out of nowhere saying, I think you would be good at law school, that put that idea in my brain.
Right. Right.
So sometimes it is hard for us to see our own superpower.
Yes.
And somebody, again, not people that like I don't know why, but I feel like parents always want us to be something that we're not, and they see, a lot of parents, I should say, not
Yeah.
all, of course not all, but in my experience. So maybe not a parent, but maybe it is, but somebody you trust that can really reflect back to you
Right.
a strength that you may not have ever seen, or it never
Right.
resonated before in you.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah.
Did anything like that ever happen to you or in your life?
Yes, but it wasn't, I mean, I guess it could be a superpower. When I was younger, I liked to sing, but I had never considered like performing or anything. I just did it because I liked it. And then I was away at a camp, like a church camp, and we had like this karaoke thing set up and everybody was singing. And so I got up and started singing the same song that everybody else had sung. And people started coming out of the hallways to come see I was 12, by the way, to see who was singing. And people were visibly surprised. And I was kind of like, okay, this is weird. And then afterwards, people kept telling me, oh my gosh, you really have a voice for singing. Like, you should do this. And I was like, okay. So I kind of started performing more. And that's when I got more into it, was from the feedback of other people, because people, I assume you assume everybody's like you. So you assume everybody, you're just an average singer like everyone else. And so when you get the feedback that you're really good at this, you lean into it. And so that's kind of when I started leaning into that. Because before I took piano. And so that was my instrument.
Right.
And I hadn't considered singing up until then. And I rode that pony for a while.
Right.
Up into my 20s. So yeah.
So can you talk about like what you did in that area and how far you got?
Sure. So I did a lot of performing in high school and in college. I did theater in high school, and then I was a music major in college, and I played piano, and I was a vocal major, and I did opera for a while. So a lot of hard work, a lot of practice, a lot of analyzing, that sort of thing. So I did that for quite a while until I had decided that wasn't really the lifestyle I wanted to lead anymore, and I needed to look at doing something else. Yes. So
I mean, you're a prime example of, knowing what your superpower is at an early age, or having a superpower that other people were like, you should really look, that made it known to you, and then writing it. And then coming to a point, and we can dig a little later into why that is, and to a point saying, like, I really need to change this lifestyle, or other things about it are just not feeding me anymore. It's not bringing me joy. It's not energizing me. And that's why I truly believe superpowers do change. Yeah. But the nice thing about a superpower is, I know for you, because I know you on some level, that a lot of those characteristics and traits that you learned from being has followed you. So even though you may not be singing or performing anymore, right? Though that, like those like you said, talked about, like the X-ray vision, or the reading minds, or whatever, that's now it's just being shown in a different medium or different context. Yeah. But you still got those with you. I developed skills that I still use today. Right. Yes. And I feel like, some people think, oh, I wasted time doing this thing. I don't do this anymore, and it was a waste of time. I think it's only a waste of time if you didn't learn from it. Because I think every life experience gives you skills. Right. And you can take those skills and apply it to the next thing. And I think that's what life is. Life is always acquiring these new skills along the way to put it to the next thing. So then you can really advance and be ahead when you start that next thing. Now you've got this tool bag with 10 new skills in it. Now I can use that and apply it here. And I think the only time you're wasting is when you're not learning. So always kind of live by and I think that's what got me to persevere, and that's what got me to where I am today. And I've had like every job you could possibly imagine. When people say, oh, how do I know? What is my, what, I don't know what to do. I need to make a decision. I don't know which decision. I'm afraid that, I make the wrong decision. And it was like so odd for me when I started getting into coaching. It was just like, really, the only quote unquote bad decision is not making a decision. Right. And I can get into analysis paralysis real quick. Right. I can. Yeah. And why is that? Because whatever decision you make, whether it's going to become an opera singer, or sitting, hopefully not sitting on doing something else, not becoming an opera, going straight to law school or whatever, right? And even if you quote unquote fail and fall on your face, you're going to learn something from it. So the only bad decision is not making one and literally sitting there. Right. Trying to analyze and reanalyze, and time goes by, because time is not going to stop for you. Well, and the thing is too, is you think, oh, I'm not making a decision if I'm just sitting here. No, you're making a decision. Your decision is to do nothing. Right. That's a decision. Right. And that has a consequence too. And the thing is okay. And I had to get over this too. And a lot of people, we all do this, is we sit there and think, well, what if it's the wrong decision? And that just stops people in their tracks. And I think past that. It's not, what if this is the wrong decision? Okay, well, what if it is the wrong decision? Let's analyze that and think about,
what are you going to do if this is the wrong decision? Oh, well, then I won't do that again. Or then I'll do this to take 2 steps past. What if this is the wrong decision?
Right.
Because that's not the end all be all. It's not, your world's not going to end if this is the wrong
What's
decision.
the worst that could happen if it's the wrong
Right.
decision?
Yeah,
The
you'll
worst,
learn.
in my opinion, is that you end up learning something.
Right, exactly. You'll learn this is not the right decision and I will change direction.
Every person I've ever asked this to, if you look back in your life and you think of the decisions where you failed, quote unquote, and made a wrong decision,
right?
Now looking back, isn't it every single time that you look back, you're like, oh well, at least it led me here. It made me learn this because I fell. I now got up and did something else different that made me succeed.
Yes, some of the most painful experiences I've had in my life have pushed me to another level. And I would not have gotten to that level without that pain and without that problem and that experience. So as painful as it was, I'm grateful for the experience because it's brought me to this point. And a lot of those experiences I had were because I made the wrong decision.
Right.
I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
Well, there's a saying, right? You fail your way to the top.
It's so true.
You never succeed your way to the top.
No.
Right. And I've been around a lot of highly successful people. And I've read a lot of autobiographies of a lot of people. And I have yet to read anybody. It's like, oh, every decision I make was perfect. And that's why I got to where I got. No. It's always, we only tend to see the end result. What we don't see is the process of how many times, thousands of times, that person fell on their face and had to pick themselves up and do and learn and then say, oh, okay, I did this, so it makes me fall, so I'm going to do this a little different and see what happens.
Right. Well, you know, there's that phrase that, you know, it only takes 10 years to become an overnight success because that's all that people see. They see like the end result. They don't see these 10 years you toiled away and that people told you this probably isn't going to work. And why are you still doing this? And I've also heard people say the reason people fail is because they quit. You know, if they hadn't quit, they would be at, you know, where the Bill Gates are, where the Jeff Bezos are. It's because they didn't quit.
There are no such thing as failure. There's only challenge, hurdles.
Right.
So if you look at something quote unquote bad as a challenge versus a failure, I think that may give you a different kind of mindset about quitting.
Well, that's true. I mean, failure has a real negative connotation. And if you think of it as like, well, this is a lesson we learned from this. And there, you know, people, I've also heard the phrase of, you know, be proud of your failures. Well, I think it just means be proud of the things that didn't work because you learned. You know, and Thomas Edison, he found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. That's what he said. So, you know, and he figured it out. So these are all of these challenges are things that teach us a skill or something we learn or forces us to grow in a way. Sometimes it's painful, but then those are tools that we take along that road with us that get us then to the next stop. It's all, I mean, I think of it literally as a road. I picked up this tool on this road and now I'm headed off to the next place where I can build this empire or this company or this family, even, you know, successful family, this, you know, if you want to, you know, close family, these things that are our goals, these skills help us do that.
So let's, I think, kind of
we could do this forever.
I know, that's why we started this, right? So let's kind of wrap it up, I guess, a little bit and step back and just kind of, you know, step away and say, you know, we're super excited about this podcast, about hopefully the ripple effect that it can cause, particularly in women who kind of just are on that hamster wheel and can have lost themselves in their job or position or family or what have you, and really giving them an opportunity or a place to be their authentic selves and learn to develop what their superpower is and what they can really leave behind as a legacy, as a, you know, emanating in this world, because we are all brought into this world with a very special whatever characteristic abilities that we are supposed to leave behind. Time is of the essence. As you guys know a little bit more, get to know a little bit more about me, you'll begin to realize how I was never ever one that ever thought I had all the time in the world. I saw a lot of death in my life, so at a very early age, so it was very kind of burned into me that I got to do things. I got to do things now. I got to make decisions quickly. I could be gone tomorrow. And that's, and that goes back to like, just make a freaking decision, because you ruminating away is not, is hurting you more than you realize.
Right.
Okay. So, we will, I guess, end it right there. I want to thank Kathleen. I want to thank everybody to listen. This is, like I said, our first episode is definitely a work in progress, but we're doing it. We're taking the risk,
Yes.
putting ourselves out there.
We're flying.
We're flying. We're hopefully, even if we just can touch one person out there that, this resonates with, that's what we're here for. And, yeah,
and we'll be posting stuff, and reach out on our Facebook page and Instagram and things like that. We look forward to building this community with you guys.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll also have show notes and all that good stuff to help you guys as you work through this journey of finding your superpower and understanding what it is. Right. Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody.
Next time. Bye-bye.